Let us look at changes to the Needle EMG program. Let's start the program, and this displays a list of muscles. Let me choose the abductor pollicis brevis muscle. I'm using surface EMG signals. You will notice several new things. For example, at the bottom of the cascades you can see the scoring toolbar over here, and this is docked at the bottom of this window. If I wanted to undock it, I can undock it, I can keep it anywhere. But this is a nice place in this window, we can just dock it to the bottom. If you look at the monitor trace, you have got two new panels over here. We have the live play and we also have the quality monitor. And once again we can dock them individually. So if I were to right click, I can undock. So now this is my quality meter, which is just floating over here, and the entire width is now used for the live play control. I can bring it down over here and I can say dock it to the bottom, and now everything is docked together. Let's look at some new function keys. Specifically, we have keys called spontaneous, volitional, motor unit, and maximum volitional. Needle EMG essentially contains 4 stages. You insert the needle and you look at the so-called insertional activity. You hold the needle and you can look at spontaneous activity. And these 2 stages together are labeled as spontaneous. Then we can look at EMG signals during voluntary activation, and we can do it in 2 ways. One is by using a free-running EMG, the way we have done it in the EMG program or the Synergy EMG program. So that's called the volitional stage. We also have something called motor unit. So this is where we can quantify single motor unit potentials using an amplitude trigger, delay line, and averager. So this was the motor unit part of EMG analysis in Viking. And finally, we can look at the EMG signals at maximum effort, which is called the maximum volitional. So these are 4 different stages that can be programmed, and each stage can have a completely different display, a very different setting for the sensitivity, sweep durations, and other things. So this is basically the way we are going to start. So this is going to be my insertional activity, and here are the cascades. I'm using a complex 1 display. Insertional activity is assessed using 50 microvolts per division. So this is the way I can look at the EMG signals. Like this. You will notice that the EMG signals are being acquired automatically into the system. I did not push the acquire button. This is something called auto acquire. This is a new feature of the software, and that can be defined in acquisition setup, and I believe it is under options. And so this is called auto acquire on entry. So when you do this, if this is turned on, then as soon as you enter a test, the needle EMG acquisition will start automatically. So this is my spontaneous stage. 50 microvolts, 200 microvolts. Now I can go to the volitional stage. I can either push F4, click on this button, or click on the soft keys on the control panel, or if you are using the Synergy system, you can use the Fn2 button, which will take us to the next stage. So I'm going to push that button, and now I'm in the volitional stage. The screen looks very similar. The only change is in the gain. Instead of 50 microvolts, I'm at 200 microvolts, and the cascades are now shown at 500 microvolts per division. So this is where we can look at the EMG activity in a free running mode. So this is again the classic Synergy screen for looking at motor unit potentials or the complex 1 display. Obviously, if you wanted to trigger on motor unit potentials, you can turn on the trigger. I'm going to push the function knob. So here is my trigger. Now I'm looking at trigger discharges. I can superimpose them. I can change the edge of the trigger. We can change the gain and other things. So none of that has changed. So everything is exactly the same. I can turn off the trigger and let me unsuperimpose the traces. So this is the way I can look at the motor unit potentials. And most uh, physicians or laboratories would like to look at maximum voluntary activation. The quantitative analysis is not done in most laboratories. So I can either go to maximum volitional, or in this default setup, I'm going to push the FN2 button. The FN2 button will actually take you from one stage to the next, and our default settings, I have skipped the motor unit stage. I will show that to you how it is configured very shortly. So I have looked at the volitional, now I push the FN2 button, and now I'm going to the maximum effort, and again you can see a slow sweep on the left side, and then here are the cascades and so forth. So this is the way I can look at EMG activity, and I can stop. If I wanted to score EMG, I can do so right over here. But let's say I don't want to do this. This is absolutely normal. I want to choose a new muscle. So here is our new muscle function key. Let me choose this. And let's say I'm going to do first dorsal interosseous muscle. Notice that it has automatically started recording the data. I can look at the insertional activity. I'm going to push FN2 to go for motor unit potentials. It changed the gain. It gave me the necessary 200 microvolt. Let's say I'm happy with the motor unit potential analysis. I can go to maximum voluntary effort by pushing the FN2 button. And now I will look at maximum effort. Sorry, I forgot to push the button. Now I'm at maximum effort. I will stop. And if there was something abnormal, I can score it right away like this. So this is generally the workflow for the routine needle EMG examination. You go from spontaneous to volitional to maximum volitional. Let me go to the new muscle, and let's say I'm going to do brachioradialis. So this is going to be my insertional and spontaneous activity. I'm going to look at volitional, so I will push FN2. Volitional, and maybe I want to look at motor unit potentials individually. So I can select the motor unit analysis by pushing the F5. Now I can see the EMG signal over here. You can see the amplitude trigger level over here. Here are the triggered discharges. So this is very much like the Viking style motor unit potential analysis program. I can adjust the trigger level, and when I'm satisfied, I will stop acquisition. So here is the individual discharges. Here is the average motor unit potential, and we have duration, amplitude, and so on and so forth. I'm happy with it. I can push next. So the data is saved, and now I'm going to record from another site and another motor unit potentials. So this is the way I can collect motor unit potentials, individual ones, by using an amplitude triggered delay line. I'm going to stop this. So this is the way I have collected motor unit potentials. I'm going to go to new muscle. Let's say I want to do pronator teres. As soon as I get into the test, the system is acquiring signals. You will also notice that here you have a progress bar in the buffer. Our default live play buffer is 20 seconds, and it is showing us how much we have recorded so far. And after 20 seconds, it's going to overwrite the earlier things. There is a check mark over here which indicates that all of our live plays are saved automatically. So that's another change in philosophy. We are going to start saving all the signals so that they can be reviewed quite easily. And again, this setting can be changed. I will show that to you a little bit later, or perhaps in a separate video. The default setting of 20 seconds can also be changed. The system is capable of saving up to 360 seconds. What I want to emphasize over here is the workflow and how it is different compared to the previous version. So I'm done with this. spontaneous, I'm going to look at volitional, look at maximum, and stop. Now obviously you can score one muscle at a time, or you can also use the summary table and you can add muscles, and for example say I did triceps, biceps, deltoid, cervical paraspinals, done, and then score the findings. So this is very similar to version 20.1. Nothing much has changed in that respect over here. Okay, I'm going to exit the test. Let's look at the catalog now. So if I come to the catalog, test history, notice that under EMG I have got all of these entries. And most likely with routine EMG in the catalog you will find 3 entries: spontaneous, volitional, maximum volitional, and so forth. In brachioradialis I did some motor units, so you get different entries. So how does this help? Let me go into spontaneous, and here is my EMG. I can scroll through my live play. You see I have 20 seconds saved, so I can easily scroll through this. I can scroll through cascades like this. So there are multiple ways by which we can scroll through this. If we want, we can also play it, the EMG signal, live. So I'm happy with this. If I go to review next, now this is going to be motor unit potential from the APP muscle. And the method of review is exactly the same. You can scroll from here, or you can scroll from here, and then review next. So this was the EMG at maximum interference pattern. And again, we can see the signals. If you like something that you believe is worth putting in the report, just click into the window over here and then transfer traces to report. Keep in mind that we cannot transfer the monitor traces into the report. We cannot do that. Hopefully in future. Okay, so this is the way we have established the review process. You can go to review next. This is going to change the muscle. Now this is first dorsal interosseous, spontaneous activity, motor unit potentials, and then maximum interference pattern. Okay, now let's look at some of the customizations and settings, specifically when it comes to the 4 stages. I'd like to emphasize that the definition of function keys is dependent upon whether we use EMG staging or not. If I click on acquisition and let's go to EMG stage setup, this is where we enable the staging. When we enable, we have 4 different stages that we can configure. First is spontaneous, and this is included in the next stage. That means you can push the FN2 button to go to the next side. And for spontaneous, my sweep duration is 100 milliseconds. The amplifier range is 50 millivolts. I'm not using any algorithm. I'm using free running sweep, not using average. And I'm using the complex one trace area. And these are the sensitivities for different traces. This is volitional. Again, I want to include this for the next stage button. These are the settings. Notice the different gains and sweep duration. The next stage is motor unit, and in my default configurations there is no check mark over here. So, and that's why if I were to push the FN2 button, it will not go into the quantitative motor unit analysis stage. I can go into it manually. And then this is the stage for maximum volitional contraction. So this is the way we have defined these trace areas. I would like to go to spontaneous. Look at the default trace areas. We have a lot more trace areas. And here are some of the trace areas like horizontal cascades and vertical cascades that have been developed for maintaining continuity with the Viking-like interface. So for example, let me say I want to use the horizontal cascade as the settings. Let me go to exit test. Maybe I can show this. Let me choose a new muscle. And this is the Viking style display of spontaneous activity EMG. So we have a long trace at the top and we have 5 cascades. I can change the display area also. So trace area, if I use vertical cascades, now it is this type of display. Again, this is to maintain compatibility with the Viking. My default over here is complex 1. That's the way we have set it for the Synergy program. So this is the way we can configure the staging, which stages are used, which stages are not used, and so forth. So to summarize, the main change in the Needle EMG program is provision for 4 distinct stages of EMG assessment, the ability to have different settings for each stage, the ability to go from one stage to the next by using the FN2 button, docking the summary toolbars, the quality monitor, and the live play panel, the ability to save the live plays automatically, the ability to start acquisition automatically when you select a muscle, and the ability to review the signals by epochs that are saved in each stage. We can save it by live play, we can review it by live play, or the cascades, and so forth. So that is a major change. Now keep in mind, depending upon the customer, you may want to change some of the settings, you may want to disable some of the stage. Some people may not want maximum volitional at all, they may just want spontaneous and volitional. That's fine. And the other possibility is changing the sweep duration or the long trace duration and the ability to save the data automatically. And I will cover those separately. But this is the change to the Needle EMG program.